Welcome to Inspiring People, the show about inspiring people, those who are inspired and those who inspire others. We all know them. They're good examples, they're supportive, they embrace life, they live inspiring lives in their day-to-day actions, and in turn, inspire others to do the same. Hi, welcome to Inspiring People. My name is Mariotto, and I'm the host of the program. My guest today is Bernice Jepson. Welcome to the show, Bernice.
Well, I'm happy that you'll have me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here, and it's important that we have you here because you are a very inspiring person and have quite a story to tell, to share with our viewers.
Well, thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born and raised, a little bit about your immediate family.
Okay, I was born and raised in a little town called Marble, Minnesota.
Marble.
It's up on the Iron Range, and I think more people are familiar with that, like it's near Coleraine, Grand Rapids,
Okay.
Duluth,
Okay.
up in that neck of the woods.
Okay, and you presently live
In Frazee, Minnesota.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about your family.
Well, my family has a pretty diverse meaning, I think, to
Okay.
it. I had, obviously, dad and a mom, a sister, brother, but there was a little bit more to it than that.
Okay.
I grew up in a very complex maze network. I would have to term my dad as an alcoholic, a
Okay.
child abuser, and a child molester.
Oh, all right.
And my mother was a perfect codependent. She never questioned my dad on anything that he did. And unfortunately, that wasn't fair to bring children into that, I think.
Yes. And then eventually you, as an adult, you were married, right, and had a family of your own.
Yes, I did.
And you want to talk a little bit about them.
Yes, my husband and I came from, I think, kind of similar backgrounds when we got hooked up together. He came from, I think, not as an abusive background as I did, but similar. And I don't think either one of us were really, I think, understanding what marriage meant or the complexities of having a relationship that involved marriage. And he was abusive, and definitely when I was given the opportunity of being a parent, I was abusive to my children.
Okay. Well, and that's one of the reasons that you're here today is because we want to share your story about not so much your past, although I know you're willing to share that, but rather your present and future and what you're doing in regard to the issues that you brought up. I first heard about Bernice when one of the viewers wrote to me and told me about a book that you had written, I'm Not That Way Anymore. So can you tell us a little bit about the book and a little bit of what you put into that, what the story is basically about? When
I wrote my book, I think it was more like an opportunity to purge it from my system. And I took the obviously the complex, like I mentioned, my life, and I took my childhood, I took my adulthood, and I kind of put it into one text. And I remember I carried that around with me for a long time, and then I thought, well, I have to let somebody read it at some point, if I wrote it. So I decided to turn it over to a very good friend. And I mentioned it with you that her name is Susan Binder, and she's a wonderful woman. She's a top-notch nurse. She's actually, I wouldn't mind leaving my life in her hands, but anyway, I gave her my story, and then I retreated back into my own little world, and for 2 weeks then I avoided her, and finally I ran right into her. And she just came up to me and she goes, Bernice, it was wonderful. She said it made me laugh, it made me cry, but she said it also gave me hope that people can read this, find themselves in your story, whether they're being abused or doing the abusing.
And you have a unique perspective in that you were abused and you were also an abuser, correct? And
yes.
So your book reflects those two different perspectives?
Entirely so. I want to make this very, I want to make this a very positive point that if you get into a situation with your children and you're feeling overwhelmed and you have maybe a thought of being abusive or you have been abusive, there are wonderful people out there that can help you, and they're not going to judge you and condemn you. It is a whole lot lighter to get that off you than it is to carry it around with you.
And I'm sure that as you travel and as you work with people and continue to write and so on, you find that message, being very important, that people have that message of hope. And let's talk about some of the organizations with which you work, okay? Which ones do you find have a really good match for the message that you have and the circumstances that you've had in your life?
Well, I've had many such organizations that have read my book and have completely been in agreement that its message is clear against abuse. For instance, Silent Witness, the organization that Paul and Sheila Wellstone started, they have endorsed my book. And actually, Defense Foundation for Children USA, I cannot say enough about that. They're very much activist. Denise Metafauer, that's the owner and publisher of newspaper and her own radio and television. She's like one of my biggest cheerleaders. And then we've got my favorite, the Prevent Child Abuse Minnesota, which is a great organization.
And how do you work with these organizations, Bernice?
Well, I send them an information that maybe they should take a look into my book and have a little look-see at it, and then I get an email back and said, yes, definitely, let's see if we can work out different venues to get the message out there against abuse issues. Okay,
and so you are from a relatively small community in northwestern Minnesota, and you've made at least a national impact. I don't even know, maybe international as well. And
true.
And do you want to talk a little bit about what's that been like for you as you've gone through this?
Well, actually, I've gotten an award. I'd like to mention that from the Peace Clinic. They're a national and international organization against abuse, and I was bestowed their Peace Clinic Award for 2005, so I'm really happy about that.
Well, congratulations about that. That's quite an honor.
That's wonderful. It is, and they're very motivated about getting my message out there, like I said, for anti-abuse. And I've had several people come up to me and actually even at work and share the enthusiasticness about how well my book has been received. So I'm pumped about it.
Great.
It's wonderful.
Well, and what sort of message, what sort of a short message can you give, a message of hope or inspiration for people who are battling some of the same problems that you've worked to overcome?
I'd like to, number one, and probably the main message is that you can get out from under abuse. I emphasize this to children too, if they're having a time of it at home, that tell someone and keep telling till someone listens to you.
Okay.
And as far as domestic abuse goes, just get help.
Get help.
Get help.
I thank you so much for being on the show. The time goes so quickly
yes,
here.
It does.
And I know there's a lot more that you can share with the viewers. Again, the name of your book is I'm Not That Way Anymore, and I would guess that that's available locally.
It is. Yes, it is.
And through our larger booksellers and so on. So thank you so much, Bernice Jepson, for being here. I know you're a busy person, so I appreciate your time.
Well, I thank you for having me again.
You're welcome. Thank you.